Hey class, today on our 5-minute lesson we're going to focus on body cavities. We're just going to go over the organization of the major body cavities and its subdivisions. Then we're also going to go over all the organs that are in each body cavity. And then I'm really going to show what I'm looking for, what I want you to really know about the body cavities. So here is a great picture of the body cavities. If you're ever looking for an awesome picture to go back and study, this is a great one, and I know it's right on Google if you want to find it. So first we're going to talk about the two big body cavities. So you have two major body cavities. The first, and I'm going to circle it right here, is the dorsal body cavity. So that's your first big body cavity. The second is your ventral body cavity. So organs are either going to be first in the dorsal or ventral body cavity. So the dorsal body cavity is a lot smaller. The ventral body cavity is much larger. So when we look at the dorsal body cavity, it divides into two smaller subdivisions. And those subdivisions are the cranial cavity and the vertebral cavity. So both of those are part of the dorsal body cavity. And the two organs that are found in these subdivisions are pretty easy to remember. So in the cranial cavity, we have the skull, and then in the vertebral cavity or spinal cavity, as you'll see it called, is your spinal cord. So if I'm asking you a question and I say the brain has been injured, you're automatically going to know dorsal cranial cavity, because the brain and spinal cord are the only two organs found within that dorsal body cavity. All right, so let's move on to the ventral. The ventral is a little bit more complex because it is so much larger than the dorsal body cavity. So first, let's go ahead and talk about the two major subdivisions of the ventral body cavity. The first is going to be this thoracic cavity right here, and it's represented in that purple color. And then the other big body cavity is the abdominopelvic cavity, which is the pink and the green combined. So first, let's go ahead and talk about the thoracic cavity. The two major organs that I want you to know that are in the thoracic cavity are going to be the heart and the lungs. So even though that heart is kind of wrapped in a blue color, it's still part of the thoracic cavity. It's just in a smaller portion of it. So you really need to know that the heart and the lungs are going to be housed in the thoracic cavity. In the abdominopelvic cavity, we get even a little bit more complex. We actually break down into two other subdivisions. We break it down into the abdominal cavity right here, which is in the pink, and the pelvic cavity, which is in the green. So the abdominopelvic cavity further divides into abdominal and pelvic. And the abdominal cavity is going to be all of your digestive organs: stomach, intestines, liver, spleen, gallbladder. All of those are going to be found there. And then in the pelvic cavity, you're going to find your urinary bladder, and all of your reproductive organs are going to be found in the pelvic. So what do I want you to do with this information? So let me give you an example really quickly. So let's say I say that patient A was in a car accident and they punctured a lung. Please tell me the major body cavity and all the subdivisions which are now involved in this injury. So you'd go, okay, the lungs. Well, it's not brain and spinal cord, so it's not going to be dorsal. It's going to be ventral, and I'm just going to write it as a V. So it's going to be in the ventral body cavity. And then when I look at my ventral body cavity, it's going to divide down into the thoracic cavity and the abdominopelvic. The lungs are going to be found in the thoracic cavity. So it's going to be the ventral cavity with the thoracic subdivision. Let's go a little bit further. Let's say patient B is a young female who has endometriosis, which is a disease of the uterus. Okay, the uterus is a reproductive organ. So I'd say first, okay, it's not brain or spinal cord, so it's not dorsal, so it's going to be ventral again. And then when I look, okay, thoracic is heart and lungs. We're talking about the uterus, so it's got to be the abdominal pelvic cavity. Abdominal pelvic. Just going to write it as AP. And then we know that the abdominal pelvic cavity further divides into two more. All right, abdominal is the digestive organs, and pelvic is urinary bladder and reproductive. All right, the uterus is a reproductive organ, so the final subdivision for that is going to be the pelvic cavity. So that's what I want you to be able to do with this information, and you're going to need to do on your exam coming up here. And hopefully you did that worksheet right that you had to do last week. If not, please go back and take a look at that. So that's going to be it for our 5-minute lesson today on body cavities. I hope that's helpful. Now please answer the questions below on a Pages document or a Word document and submit as a PDF. Thanks a lot and have a great day.